Kyle Klingman with Track Wrestling. What a treat. We have Jim Martin, four-time All-American for Penn State, NCAA champion in 1988. His placings were 4th, 2nd, 1st, and 3rd. Now he is a doctor in State College, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining us, Jim.
Sure.
Great to have you on, man. What was it about Penn State you liked?
Oh, man. Just about everything. It was a great experience for me. You know, I came here as a really, I was a 105-pounder in high school, so I was really small, and I had some great coaching. I got a great education, and just had a tremendous experience here.
How were you able to grow into the weight classes, going 118 and then eventually 126?
Yeah, I was really immature when I graduated from high school. I was just really kind of a late bloomer, so I grew when I got here. I wrestled 114 and a half pounds my freshman year. I wrestled freestyle, redshirted my first year. Wrestled a lot of freestyle about 114 and a half, and then just kind of grew into the weight. And actually, by the time I was a junior, I my sophomore year, I kind of had trouble making 118. So that's why I went up, and it was a good decision for me. But
what makes you think that when you're that light that you can actually go D1? Did you have some intangibles that made you feel like you could do that?
I wasn't so sure I could, to be honest with you. I don't know. These guys coming out nowadays are phenomenal. These guys that come out and compete as true freshmen, I think that's just phenomenal. When I came out of high school, I looked at the guys that were national champions like Carl DeStephanis. That's one of the reasons I came to Penn State is, he was a national champion. When I was a senior in high school, he was a 118-pound national champion. And I looked at him and I said, I want to wrestle like that guy. Because he had all kind of fire behind him and wrestled with a lot of intensity and a lot of passion. And, I wanted to be like that. So that's one of the reasons that I came to Penn State. But I had no idea that if somebody would have told me when I graduated from high school that I could be a 4-time All-American, win the national championship, that was actually probably beyond my dreams even then. It amazes me that these kids come out of high school thinking they can compete with the best guys in the country when they're freshmen in college, and they do. It's remarkable. Like the kid from Okie State, even RBY from Penn State, his freshman year, he's competing for a national championship. And Mark Hall, won a national championship his freshman year, and Bo Nickel, and it's phenomenal.
What was that first year like in the Penn State room?
Yeah, it was rough. My wife, we'd started dating in high school, and she was a year behind me. So she's got all these letters up in her room that she remembered that she says she should get out and just show our kids that how I just got beat up. There are guys like Carl DeStephanis, who's a grad assistant, Scott Lynch, who was a 134-pound national champion the year before, and used to just kind of beat me up all day long in the room. But, eventually if you keep coming back, you get better, and, good things happen.
What were these letters? Tell me about those.
Well, just how, I'd be right in saying how depressing it was. Because, when I was in high school, if I got taken down in the wrestling room by anybody, I was ticked off and would pound on somebody for the rest of the practice if they took me down. So I didn't, used to drive me crazy. And then you come here, and I was lucky to get a takedown the whole practice sometimes against some of those guys. So, it was a real change for me, a real humbling experience. And that was rough. That was probably the roughest part of the whole freshman year, is just getting beat up and, having guys, such good competition. But in the same sense, that's what, makes you better. So.
Was wrestling something your dad wanted you to get into?
Not really. I just followed my brother. I had an older brother who was 4 years older than me, and he started wrestling when he was, 2nd or 3rd grade, and he ended up being a state runner-up in Pennsylvania. So he was pretty good, and I just kind of followed in his footsteps a bit.
Was it a match right away? Did you gravitate toward it?
I wouldn't say that, really. Wrestling's a tough sport, and it's kind of tough. It's not fun going to practice and getting beat up. Somebody riding you, and the mat's uncomfortable. You get rubbed, your face gets rubbed in the mat a little bit. And I don't know, in elementary school it was kind of rough, but by the time I got in junior high, I kind of developed a real passion for it, and kind of got quite a bit better. And when you're beating everybody up all day long in practice and whatever, it's a lot more fun.
Did you work a lot with John Fritz?
I did, yeah. John Fritz and Hashiro Oishi, those were the two guys that were assistant coaches when I was here. So I spent a lot of time with both those guys, but they really kind of took me under their wing and And I don't know, made me who I, wrestling wise, who I was. I used to practice and train with those guys quite a bit.
Well, we go through the placings, but you look at the overall record. I think you were 150 some and lost 9 matches. So you won a lot in college. Where did you make that stride and just cross the threshold and got good?
Yeah, I think it was that freshman year when I just kept coming back, and it was interesting. I can remember there was this tournament called the East Stroudsburg Open, and it was a pretty big open tournament with pretty good competition. And I came in when I was a freshman, and I was wrestling with all these guys, and you don't know that you're getting better until you go out and compete against other people. And there was a kid that I wrestled in high school that I used to beat really close scores by 1 point all the time. And we wrestled the East Stroudsburg Open, and I technical fouled him, and I thought, geez, man, something's changing here. I just, even though things didn't seem that much different in the room where I was still getting beat up a bit, I was just getting better.
Did you know you wanted to be a doctor during this time?
Well, my dad's a physician, so that was one thing that, I didn't know what I wanted to do when I went through school. I went through school, and I really put an emphasis on doing well in school, and I just wanted to do well in everything I did. So school was just part of it, but I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a doctor. I just kind of migrated that way, just because that's what my dad did, and that was the right thing to do. When I was in college, I was interested in wrestling and just doing well in school. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do for a career, and I thought about coaching for a while, but I think I made the right choice.
But when you get into being that profession that you're in, being a doctor in medicine and
Mm-hmm.
caring for people,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty serious business. Like, there had to probably be a point where you said, I have to be all in with this. I can't just do it half-hearted.
Well, that's right. That's true. And it does. I mean, that's one thing why I don't know, people say, did you miss wrestling, or how'd you get out of wrestling? Because a lot of people struggle with that, when there's something such a big part of their life, and they change course and they struggle. But, medicine is so consuming, to get through medical school and residency, it just consumed me just like wrestling did. So I really didn't miss wrestling too much. And the other thing I'll tell you, I don't know, I got kind of tired a little bit of wrestling. It was, it's a sport where you have to do everything for yourself. You have to train, and you think about yourself all the time. And I was kind of, by the time I was a senior in college, I was kind of a little bit tired of that. And I would kind of felt like I really wanted to go out and help other people. And that's kind of what made me make the transition from, I think, wrestling to medicine.
Did you always have that internally that you wanted to help people?
I did. Yeah, I did. And it kind of, like I said, that's the one thing that really kind of, I struggled with a little bit, because, for me, I don't feel like I was all that talented. So I really put a lot of time into wrestling, and everything was me, 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 if I was going to reach the goals that I had. And I kind of got a little bit tired of that after a while.
You wrestled some tough dudes, and just thinking about your senior season was 1989, and you got 3rd place. And you had 2 Olympic champions in the bracket. You had Kendall Cross and Tom Brands. You can even go back to Brad Penrith, was a guy you wrestled in the finals in 1988. And then you had Ricky Bonomo, who was a stud too. So you think about who you wrestled, who was some of the tough guys that you felt like really maximized your effort?
Well, I think the most frustrating guy was Bonomo, because he was a gifted athlete. He was just phenomenal. And I spent all this time training and, I don't know, thinking about how I was going to beat him. And, I got closer and closer as time got on, but never got to the point where, I was able to beat him. But, I feel like I trained all year round and thought about wrestling most of the time. And, here was a guy who, he trained, I'm sure, pretty hard, but I don't think anything like I did. But, he was the most frustrating guy. I think he beat me 4 or 5 times. I can't remember even, but, and then, there was great competition. I was really glad that I got to compete against Gable's teams. Gable was a big kind of mentor, or not mentor, but idol of mine when I was growing up. Everybody heard about Dan Gable, and it was just really nice that I was able to compete against his teams, because he was a phenomenal coach. And as great of an athlete was, I think he was a better wrestling coach than even an athlete and a wrestler, because he always got the most out of his guys. I mean, that's what's one thing he really did. He got the most out of his guys. And I think I really looked up to him for that. But it was nice to compete against him.
Did you and Concerto have to have conversations on who was going to go what weight?
Well, when I came into school, Kenny was quite a bit bigger than me. So he was like a natural 126 pounder. Like I said, I was a 105 pounder. So, you know, I kind of grew as time went on, and it eventually came down to, eliminating. When I decided to go up my junior year, we wrestled in the Midlands finals, and I beat him by a point. And then we actually had a wrestle off in the wrestling room where they brought a referee in, and I beat him in that too. I was kind of a better college wrestler than he was, because I was good on top and bottom, and we were pretty even on our feet. So I could usually ride him and get out. And if we stayed even on our feet, I was going to beat him most of the time. Now, he's a better freestyle wrestler than I was, and we did compete freestyle once where he beat me. But when it came down to college style, I think I was going to beat him most of the time.
What kind of unique skill set did Brad Penrith bring to the mat?
Well, Brad, he was a great wrestler. He was a good all-around wrestler, and he could wrestle on top, could wrestle on bottom, and he had a lot of the same skill set I did, and I think that's kind of why we kind of went back and forth, winning and losing matches, because it kind of just depended on who won a couple scrambles here and there. But he was a good wrestler, and I don't know how he competed in the Iowa room. It'd be interesting to know, but when he got out in the mat, he against other guys, he really, beat most everybody. I mean, he won the nationals. I think he was like, he wasn't even their starter his sophomore year until towards the end of the year, and came in and won the national championship. So it's a pretty big deal.
And then you went to medical school at the University of Iowa. How'd you decide on that?
Well, I went to residency there. I went to medical school at Penn State's medical school in Hershey, and then I did my orthopedic residency out there. And basically, I looked around, and the dean of my medical school, who was an orthopedic surgeon, which is what I wanted to do, he basically said, hey, you should look at Iowa, because they've got one of the best orthopedic training programs in the country. And when I looked into it, that's what I found, and that's why I went there. They have one of the top orthopedic training programs in the country. So I went out there, had a great experience, and really glad that I did.
What years were you there?
I was there from 1989, or no, not from 93 to 98, 93 through 98.
Did you connect with the Iowa program at all?
Well, I kind of made some efforts to do that a little bit, but I didn't think they really wanted me around, to be honest with you. That was a time when Sanshiro Abe was a 126 pounder here, and he was competing against McGinnis. And I always felt like I don't know, those guys are a little bit paranoid sometimes, I think. And I think they thought I was spying on them, or, I'd take some tricks, or, take some things and take them back and, I don't know, help out the Penn State guys. But the bottom line is I didn't really feel welcomed in their wrestling room very much. And I would have liked to have gotten involved. And, if I would have gotten involved, I would have really gotten tied into their guys too. But I really didn't feel welcome there.
Now that you're a doctor and just your profession, how did wrestling still stay a part of your life, if it did at all?
Well, I think wrestling is one of those things that it's an individual sport where, you get out of it what you put in, and you learn a lot of life lessons. And those life lessons can be translated into any job, or just into any life, everybody's life. And, hard work, if you're going to get anywhere, you got to be willing to put the time in, put the effort in, and you have to be able to say no to things that are more desirable at times in order to meet the goals that you have. And, I do that every day. And, I get great joy from it. I tell you, it's really satisfying when you go to clinic and people just come back and they're just so thankful for what you've done for them. And, literally, I go to clinic in a day, and, I've got, most of the time, I got patients that just tell me how great I am all day. So, it's pretty nice.
How do you compartmentalize that, where you have to work on a human being, and yet that you probably have to be precise in what you're doing and shut your mind off? Is there a skill to doing that?
It's just, I mean, I don't know that there's a skill, there's a focus. And, that helps, I think my wrestling training and wrestling career has been similar, is that, I don't know, I have the ability to just focus on things and block everything else out and focus on whatever it is for the moment. So, that was helped me in wrestling. It really helps me with my job now. And the other thing is that, it's preparation too. Every case, every surgery that I do, I think about it, I prepare for it, just like a wrestling match to some degree. You sit down beforehand, you think about what you're going to do, and you visualize yourself doing it. And I do those same things with my surgeries, especially things that I don't do as often. I have to think about them and read about them and plan them. And there's no excuse for being ill prepared in what I do.
Do you still go to Penn State meets?
Yeah. I'm the president of Nittany Lion Wrestling Club still, so I run the meetings, and most of the other people, Dave Hart, and does most of the work, and some of the other guys, but Jake Barner, but I'm still involved some. I don't do much work. I go and kind of run the meetings, make sure they're run pretty good, and make sure everybody's on key and we're doing the right things. But we've got a great situation here at Penn State right now with Cale Sanderson and the coaching staff. It's just really an unbelievable situation, I think.
How have you built such a great club system with the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club?
Well, it comes from the top. Sanderson's just a great name, a great guy. He brings in good guys. I'd say our resident athletes are just phenomenal people. When I talk about wrestling and how you're so me, a lot of these guys are great wrestlers, but they're also out to help other people out. And they're really unique, I think, because when I was wrestling, I came across some real knuckleheads that were really pretty good. But these guys that are the resident athletes here, they're pretty selective in who they take, and they're all really good guys that are training hard, but also willing to help other people out. And then we have phenomenal alumni support too, which really helps. I mean, you can't do it without that.
How do you go about making decisions on what you do going forward? Because it is really a high bar that you guys have set right now. How do you make decisions on how you guys move forward?
Well, we do it as a group to some degree, but it really comes from the coaches of the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club, which are a lot of the Penn State coaches. They're the ones that really run the show. But everything's done right, and I feel like we've done everything at Penn State for the most part. Everything's done right, and that's one thing I'm really proud of about Penn State University and the program that I went through. Lorenzo was the coach. He made sure everything was done right, and it's a good thing to be a part of.
How do you make sure that everyone feels a part? Because here you are, you didn't have Cale clearly because you were before him, but you didn't have him as a coach. How does he keep you engaged in the program?
Well, he's real good about trying to get people involved and keep people involved. And, he's just a great guy and a very humble guy, and knows their tradition, and really tries to, we have alumni stuff every year, and he really tries to welcome guys back and makes them be a part of the program or feel like they're part of the program, which I think is key to getting the alumni to buy into it and stay involved. And, as a result, we've had a lot of alumni here that have done pretty well in the business world and other aspects of life as well. And, when that's the case, they're willing to give back, which has really helped our program.
What do you do when you face a tough decision in your profession, the medical profession, where it might come down to I don't know if it's life or death for you in your situation, but how do you face those decisions?
Yeah, well, hopefully not. What I do is I don't think myself usually too much of dealing with life and death situations. I'm an orthopedic surgeon, so I'm trying to improve people's quality of life. I tell people all the time, what I'm doing is I'm not saving lives. I'm not, what I'm trying to do is help people have a better quality of life. And, I'm not a heart surgeon where, if I don't do this surgery, you might die but in the same sense, if I do something wrong, that could be possible. But the key thing, once again, is preparation. I think, I prepare for everything I do every day that I go forward. I look at what I'm doing. I prepare for it the day before, the night before, or sometimes if there's a tough case coming up, I'll prepare for it for a week or two before, and just make sure I'm ready.
Do you ever go back into your wrestling thoughts when you're in surgery?
Not too much. It's interesting because I was just thinking about that today, knowing that you were going to be interviewing me here tonight. And, I think about what I do. It's interesting because like today was an OR day for me. I had 4 cases. It's it's kind of like going to a tournament for the day. I have 4 matches. Each case is a different situation, and I start, finish, and it's kind of like a wrestling tournament where you're going and wrestling 4 matches a day. I have 4 surgeries today, and I plan each one. And fortunately, I know what they are beforehand. Unlike wrestling, you don't know who you're going to get the next match sometimes, but I know exactly what I'm up against. I know exactly what to prepare, and sometimes things don't go necessarily as expected, but you have to be prepared for that, and know what might happen, and if that happens, then what to do.
What do you do to recover and to make sure that you're fresh for your job?
Well, that certainly can be tough. It's gotten a lot easier, as I gotten older and got a lot more experience. I'm a lot better at what I do, I think, and I don't stress over as much of the things that I do because they're pretty routine to me now. But I don't know. One of the key things that fuels me is I exercise every day. First thing I do when I get up before I go to work is I exercise, and it just kind of helps deal with the stress of my job, and kind of helps me relax and takes care of some of that stress, some of those endorphins that help me get through the day.
How long do you think you can keep doing this in this routine?
I don't know. It's hard to know. Sometimes I don't know, but I spent, it's consumed me just like wrestling does. So it is my life. I don't do a whole lot of other stuff. I have a family, and I work. That's a large part of what I do.
When's the last time you got on a mat and rolled around a little bit?
Well, it wasn't all that long ago. I haven't really. When Kales came here first, I went in the room a little bit here and there, wrestled a little bit. And when I first came to town, I wrestled some with the college guys. And I used to go in the high school room and work out with some of the guys. But I hadn't wrestled for, I don't know, probably 5 or 10, or probably almost 10 years. And then my youngest son decided to start wrestling when he was in 7th grade. So he's now a junior. And after his sophomore year, he took a lot of lumps. So I kind of told him that I would kind of train him a little bit since last season through this season. And, we'd go and work out a couple times a week, usually 2 or 3 times a week. So I haven't wrestled with anybody else other than him, but he's got a ways to go yet.
You feel more connected to the medical community or wrestling community?
Some of both. I think it's pretty equal. I'm pretty well connected in both. And one thing about wrestling is, you are once you're wrestling, I mean, it's a part of you, and you never lose that or get out of it. And here at Penn State, wrestling's a big deal. So even by today's standards, I'm nothing. These guys now, to be something here at Penn State, you have to be a 2 or 3 time national champ to be anything remarkable almost. Where back in my time, to win a national championship was a big deal. But still, you'd be surprised at the number of people that remember that. The people that I see coming into clinic or the people I see out in the street, they still know who I am, and that I was a national champion back in 1988, which is, a long time ago.
What's that like wrestling in Rec Hall?
Yeah, it's awesome. It is really. We didn't have the crowds that they have now, but we had some really big crowds. When we wrestled Iowa my sophomore year, they were going for their 9th national championship, and we really took them to town. And it was standing room only. There were 7,000 people there, and it was awesome. But we had good crowds. We had big crowds. It wasn't packed like it is now every match. But Rec Hall is a great place to wrestle. I like I said, I feel very fortunate to have had the experience that I did, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
When you were at Penn State, what was your daily lifestyle like? Did you have to stay pretty disciplined in what you did?
I don't know. I've always been a disciplined person, and I don't know. I just do better, as most people do, with a regimen, a pretty specific regimen. But we used to get up, and we'd practice twice a day. So I'd either go to class and then practice after that, or practice before first class of the day, and then we'd usually have a workout later in the afternoon. And whether it be sometimes it was a weightlifting workout in the morning, but sometimes it was just a drilling session. But almost always it was 2 workouts a day, and that was just life.
What's your regimen look like right now?
Well, it's a bit variable depending whether I'm in the OR or in clinic. But like I said, I get up every morning and exercise first thing I do. So on OR days, that's pretty early morning. I get up usually at little after 4 o'clock in the morning and get up and exercise for about an hour, hour and a half, then they'll go to surgery. And usually I'm there all day. You know, I do 4 or 5 often joint replacements or some type of ligament reconstructive things. Then usually I'm heading home usually about 5 or 6 o'clock. If it's a clinic day, it just, I get to sleep in a little bit more. I don't usually have to get up till about almost 5 o'clock on those days. But